This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Sudan.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, they haven't, it's not like that plan was followed perfectly to a T, but a lot of it sure was.
Obviously, it's been more than 5 years since 9/11, but we know that that doesn't mean it's not happening. And we've seen it happen. And in the last 2 weeks, you know, they've been calling out Iran for the terrible attacks that happened on October the 7th. But without evidence, they call out Iran. And it's so irresponsible of them, but they don't care. You know, that's the point. It's like a lot of propaganda and everything that goes on with this. They don't care. They just, who's they? The warmongers. We see them, you know, the Nikki Haley's, the Lindsey Grahams, you know, these people, there's so much more to this situation.
Insane that this was just said. And that's not just like if we didn't have such a corrupt press, how do they not talk about that every day?
Every day.
Like, why does that never come up? Oh, it's like, oh, as we fought all of these wars, no one went, but this is exactly what I heard Mr. 4-star General tell me was your plan. And
exactly right. Like, where is the media? Like, the press should ask. They should ask, like, hey, wait a second, Libya? You know, like Muammar Gaddafi. Hey, I remember hearing the 4-star General, General Wesley Clark, say that there was a plan, and it looks like we're going along with this plan. Like, why can't we ask these questions? But at the same time, they will Julian Assange you if you ask too many questions, I guess. That's why the beauty of the internet now, they can't lie to us anymore. You know, they can't, like, they'll try really hard. The thread of the narrative, it loosens.
You've never come to the American people and said, this is my plan. You're just like, so, and what's really interesting about it, right, is it just reveals this like the way propaganda works. Because if you think about it, we start fighting the war in Afghanistan. We're in the war in Afghanistan by late 2001. It's not till 2003 we're in Iraq, right? And then it's not till 2010 that we're in Libya. 2012 we're in Syria, you know, and then in Yemen, then in all the, and it's like each time they had their own little propaganda story for why we had to go into this war now. And you're like, no, this was always planned.
Exactly. This was always planned. And that's the thing. There's always been a story. The Syrian war, I didn't ever understand it. I just really could not understand it. But what we need to know about it is that we funded moderate rebels to start breaking up Syria and blaming it on Assad. And we funded this. Who's we? Our taxpayer dollars. Somebody asks us, they just use the money and they fund these things. A lot of these little groups, these Islamic jihadi groups that everybody talks about, right? We've given them money, and some of them we've created.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know."
And like, we laugh, right? Like, yo, that's something to laugh about like years later. But it's like, I don't know. These are the people who were running the show.
He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail."
We don't know what to do. We have a good military, and, you know, we're basically going to switch out governments. Because yes, at that time, there was a good military. And let me be clear, all veterans, anybody who enlists to serve, you're great, you're amazing, you're brave. Okay, that's nothing I've ever done before. But the point that I'm making is that was a real prime time in this country, period. Not just for the military, just everything around the early 2000s and late 90s was just like premium. You know, this is when liberals and conservatives got along and went out and got a drink together and understood that they could not agree on everything, but still get along, and everybody wasn't crying or trying to be the next victim of the day. That's what they decided to do with the young men and women who were brave to enlist in the services after 9/11.
And by that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, you remember that? He said, sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you.
You know, we bomb these places, we go in and we destroy them, right? American establishment goes in and destroys these countries up to overturn governments. And we wonder why they look at us like the biggest terrorists in the world. The citizens, we don't know. We're minding our business. We're going to work. Those of us who want to be law-abiding citizens and putting back something into society. But nobody asked us about going to other countries and upturning their governments, giving them, quote, democracy, and destroying these countries. And I don't want to be collectively punished for this. People are waking up, though. One thing I will say with this whole situation that's happened in Gaza, people are waking up. I am noticing that people are waking up and saying, but wait a minute, what's going on? How did we get here? Why are we involved this time? And this, that, and the third. While we're able to assess situations and get information, that's great. That's good that people are doing it. It's good to know. It is good to know. At least you're aware so that you don't fall for everything, because they use serious propaganda on us too, to put us in a capture of saying, yes, we're ready to go to war. Stay vigilant, stay strong. I'll see you guys at the next video. Bye.